Well, hi everyone, this is Wilson, and today I want to do a little bit with Thunderstone Advance. I believe I have every expansion that there is, and so I've got a lot to play with. And I want to show you an expansion, I shouldn't say an expansion, but rather a variant by a Board Game Geek user by the name of Huggin. His first name is Sheldon, I can't remember his last name, sorry Sheldon, but I love this variant so much that it's all I ever play anymore. So let's have a look at the table. As usual, you just take three different monsters. You take a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. In my case, I've got an Ooze and a Giant and Doom Knights. So they're kind of tricky, but they're great. Just do that randomly. That's what I did. And then over here, you have to pick your Thunderstone Bearer. I don't have any Guardians this time. Plus, I don't play with any Familiars. I should point that out to you right away. You can if you want, but I just don't. So you take your Thunderstone Bearer. Usually I do that in a way that I don't know who it is, but I've already sort of played through a little bit. So I knew it was Motel here, the Genie Lich. I always throw a treasure in because I love treasures. And this actually is not a hero. This represents a trap. I'm working on my own variant, and I have two, which I've added to Sheldon's variant, and I play that. So I'm going to show you the whole shebang. Now, whether or not this trap shows up, it's inconsequential, but that's what it's doing there, and that'll be finding its way into my dungeon deck. So what you need to do with each of your level 1, level 2, level 3 creatures here is you need to create a stack of 6 of them randomly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So usually it means you're taking 6 or so out of here, or at least 4. But you create a 6 level 1, 6 level 2, 6 level 3. Then you're going to start to mix them in certain ratios. So here are my 3 different piles, level 1, level 2, level 3 monsters. You take 2 level 1, 3 level 2, and 4 level 3, create a separate pile, and shuffle those together. And so here's the pile I've just created, and I should point out that I shuffled my treasure into this as well. Okay, so you place 3, 1, 2, 3 there. Take your Thunderstone Bearer, put him or her on top, and then take the remaining and put them on top of that. Okay, so there's the beginning of your dungeon stack or your dungeon deck. Now coming back down here, you'll see that these are the remaining level 1s, level 2s, and level 3s. There's a lot of level 1s, a few fewer level 2s, and even more so level 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my card that represents my trap. I'm going to shuffle that in with all of these. And once this stack is well shuffled, it will go on top of there, and my dungeon deck is complete. Okay, that's done. So we have a complete dungeon deck, and now what we do is we can play on easy mode, normal mode, or difficult mode. Easy mode, you simply start this way. There's nobody in the ranks at all. Normal mode, you start with 1 monster in the ranks, and hard mode, or difficult mode, you start with a monster in rank 3 and rank 4. The rest of the setup on the board is pretty standard. I did it all randomly as well. So I've got a couple of villagers down here. I've got 1 spell, which is Bandy as Wisdom. Here's my regular, the basic cards, regular, long, spear, and torch. And then the rest of it is in here, of course. I've got a couple of really good weapons. I like having a ranged weapon. I like the Feast, is a lot of fun. The Dredging Net can be good too. I don't use it a lot, but in this game, or in this variant, you'll find that you sometimes are forced to use certain things in the village. So it's kind of neat that way. My heroes I also picked randomly. The final thing you'll need are your Thunderstone chits, your shards as it were, and dice. What you have to do is you have to have 50 of these. I mean, you can use your colored ones if you want, just to add even more variety. I probably should have, for the purposes of this video, just to have them show up a little bit better, but it doesn't matter. You want to make sure you've got 50, so no more, no less, because those are going to act as experience, as usual, and they're also going to act as wounds, all right? That's how the variant works. You're also going to need some dice. These are, well, they're 6-sided, obviously, but they're numbered 1 to 3. The reason for that is because I actually level up my monsters. Once they've breached and come out of rank 1 and attack the village, they actually come back to the top of the pile to attack again, and they level up in terms of their health. They become more difficult. So that's something I found thematic, and I'll explain that when we get to it. And then you need 1 12-sided die. For the purposes of speeding things up, I've got 3. I could probably even come up with a couple more, but I've got 3 here. All you need is 1, because when the monsters attack the village, they will attack according to your die roll. And Mortality is going to escape the dungeon. He's been breaching, and here he comes. I wasn't able to take him out. Now you can see down here, Mortality, if you were to defeat him, you'd get 3 Thunderstone shards, 3 experience essentially, okay? But in this variant, what you do is you look at this number, the victory point number, and he's worth 5 victory points. So what that means is you take Mortality, bring him down here, and you go to your Thunderstone shards, okay? You need 5 of them because of his victory points. So obviously each monster up here, they've all got different number of victory points. In his case, it's 5. Now what you do is that thematically, he's going to attack your village, okay? So this is where your 12-sided dice come in. And again, one would have done, because you're going to roll 1 12-sided die for each of these experience shards, but these shards are actually going to become wounds in your village. Now I'm rolling 3 dice just to speed things up. So here we go. This is how it works. Okay, so we got a 1, 9, and a 5. So you take one of your wounds now, and you go up here. Now your basic items don't count, all right? But everything else in your dungeon, or excuse me, in your village is actually numbered from 1 to 12. So starting with with your heroes, you're going to start numbering them 1 to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to come over here, 5, 6, 7. Don't forget you're skipping that. You're skipping that, so that's 8, 9, 10, Bandia's Wisdom, and 11 and 12 for my villagers. So I've rolled a 1, so I take this as a wound and I put it on my Force Mage wizard. So he's wounded. Then I take my other wound, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that goes on the Snakehead Flail. And so it goes. So I've got a number 9, which is here, and now I have to roll the dice, 2 more dice. And I got a 2 and a 4. So that means my Human Ranger and my Divine Healer also get wounded. Now, here's what this means. If I were to come into the village now and I wanted to buy a Snakehead Flail, the normal cost of the flail is 3. Okay, you can see there, 3 gold. Because it's wounded, the cost is now 4. Okay, so simply need to pay more because there's a wound on the Snakehead Flail. The same thing goes for the heroes. Whereas this hero, the wizard, is usually 8 to buy, and the Golem Trapper is usually 7. Now, the Force Mage Wizard is 8 plus 1 because of the wound, and the Golem Trapper is 7 plus 1. So to purchase, they're all becoming more expensive. I should point out right away that if I was going to level up one of my regulars, or if I had a level 1 Golem Trapper and I wanted a level 2, the wounds don't actually affect anything. So if you're leveling up in that regard, if you're paying your 2 to level up, in this case, because they're basic, well, they're not basic cards, but they're opening heroes, because you're just paying 2, you can level up. You're fine. You're fine if you're leveling up that way. It's only if you're purchasing that the cost goes up. All right. And so that's the way it works. And every time a monster comes out of here, he's going to attack the village. But there's a little more to it than that. And this is where my variant to Huggins' variant comes in. First of all, you do refill the dungeon. And so whereas the mortality has come out of the dungeon, everything does move up as per normal rules. And you go back to the top of your dungeon deck, you look at who it is, it's a Titan, a Giant. So mortality, instead of going to some sort of discard pile, mortality goes back. He's going to cycle back through the dungeon into what is essentially rank 5. Now, you can't attack mortality there. You can only go as deep as 4. But what we're going to do is we're going to indicate that mortality has already been through the village and attacked the village once before he's actually returned to his lair to give a report, if you will. And so what we do is we mark that with a die. So mortality, as you can see on the die, he's been through once. And then, of course, if he makes it through again, he might return and be a 2, and he might return even again and be a 3. What that does is every time there's an additional number here, it actually adds to his health. So instead of being a number 7 in terms of his defense and in terms of his health, he is now, where'd it go? Well, it can't be that hard. There we go. He's now an 8. Okay, and if he succeeds in making it through again, he'll become 9. He'll become harder and harder to get, to kill. Once you do kill him, he does get added to your discard pile, and he does start to clog up your deck. In fact, he actually has a bit of a trophy there that's not such a good thing in his case. But that's how this works. And so he's going to cycle back through, and you can. So I've just been into the dungeon and I took out this green blob, which is a level 1 ooze. So the aftermath was destroy food, but I didn't actually own any food, so it was no big deal. There was no food in my hand. You can see that he has 2 victory points. So if he had ultimately breached on me, or maybe it's a she actually, I wonder. But you can see that if he had actually breached on me, he would have wounded the village for 2 damage. As it is, he actually instead is going to give me 1 experience point. And so first of all, what I do is I put him in my discard pile. Here's my discard pile. So he goes there. Now, second thing I do, and this is going to be a lot happening at once, but this will be very helpful, I think. Second thing I do is I get to collect 1 experience point. Now, instead of going to my pool, I heal the village. In fact, I have to heal the village. And so I come back over here and I look at things, and I look at the things that are already wounded. As you remember, just a few seconds ago, mortality put several wounds, 5 in fact, on the village. And so now it's incumbent upon me to begin healing the village. So what I think I'll do is probably, I do like the human ranger. So I'm going to go up here. He has 1 wound on him, and I'm going to take that wound off him and add him to my experience, which is, I don't have any yet, so I'll just put that there. Every one of these cards in the village is allowed a maximum of 5 wounds on them. You can't do more wounds than that. So if the Golian Trapper did have 5 wounds already and got wounded again, that wound would actually fall to the next eligible card in order, okay? So if he had 5 and he had 5 and he got wounded, then he would receive the wound, and so it goes. All right, so 5's the maximum, but hopefully you're good at the game, hopefully you're good at the variant, and you're able to heal up well. The other thing you'll notice now that my camera's pointed at it, is that I had a Thunderstone shard in my hand. So that means that I get a bonus, well, I get an extra experience, right? That's one of the spoils, is I gain extra experience. Now, I've already collected my 1, and so you'd think I would go back to the village and say heal Dredging Net, or Snakehead Flail, or the Human Wizard, but no. Any card that gives you a bonus experience, you have to go back and return to your pool. So my bonus for my Thunderstone shard comes from there. So now, here's my pool, I've got 2 experience. But there's a little bit more than that, and it's not necessarily unusual, but I want to point it out, because I'm using Bandia's Wisdom. Now, Bandia's Wisdom says that not only does each hero gain strength, but we gain 3 experience points, and then at the end of that, we discard, at the end of our foray into the dungeon, at the end of our turn, we discard 2. And so I drew 3 experience, but because this is a card bonus and not a victory in the dungeon, these 3 experience came from here, okay? They came from here. They didn't come from the village. I wasn't healing the village using Bandia's Wisdom. So we put in the 3, 1, 2, 3, and then Bandia's Wisdom says at the end of the turn we discard 2. So these 2 go back into the pool. Simple as that. Actually rolling along pretty well here, and I just took out this giant Titan. So I got 3 experience points to reward myself. So he goes on my discard pile, but I did also want to mention this. When you're healing the village, you can't go back to the same village stack more than 1 time. So I took 1, I healed the Jondal Bull for 1, I healed my Golan Trader for 1, and I think I healed Bandia's Wisdom for 1, okay? Now, if you had to, if one of these characters, if one of the village stacks only had, say, only one of them was wounded and there was 3 wounds on it, then all 3 wounds would have to come from there. But insofar as it's possible, wounds have to come from separate piles. So I just turned up a Xenomorph, which is actually a proxy marker for my pit trap in the pit. So I got to pay 3 experience tokens or discard any thief present or destroy 1 character of my choice from the bottom of its hero stack. So that's pretty deadly if you don't have the experience tokens, which actually, fortunately, I do. And then what you do is you place Pit Trap in your discard pile and you redraw for that 4th rank. Now, there is a trophy effect, and that becomes a problem, right? You can see the trophy effect there if there's not too much glare. So every time that comes up in your hand, the trophy is that you destroy 3 cards of your choice in the village. Yeah, so it can be rough. It has no gold value. It has a light value of -1. So if you actually go into the dungeon, it's not helping you at all. And there's no experience given for it, but there are 8 victory points. And so the victory points, they're so high because they are, oops. The idea is to tempt you to keep it in your hand because at the end of the game it could be worth it. Sort of in my trial phase, so I don't know if that's going to work or not, but that's the basic idea. Anyway, I have 3 experience, so I'm able to discard this. Excuse me, not discard it, but I can take it out of the dungeon right away and put it in my discard pile. The game conditions are not unlike you would expect. If it comes to the point where the monsters are leaving the dungeon and they're going to wound the village and you're out of wounds to put on your village, then the monsters have won the game. The other thing that can happen is that once they come out of the breach position and attack the village, they go into something that, I can't remember what Sheldon called it, some sort of exhaustion or something, and you have to start drawing from your own experience pile. But of course, once this is empty and once your experience pile is empty, then you are in trouble. And in fact, once the Thunderstone bearer comes out, they have a little exception to what they do. So not only is he worth 4 victory points, but what that means is as a Thunderstone bearer, he actually does double damage. So he'd be doing 8 damage on the village, which would put it into this game because there's nothing here. And I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I would be in a sort of a deprived state, so the game would be over and I would have lost. Now, if the game is over and I win because I've killed the Thunderstone bearer, the way it works is this. We go back to our pile, we count up our experience points that are in this pile, and then we subtract the number of the final number, the total of experience that we have gained through our victories. We subtract the number of wounds that are in the village. The experience that we have gained, that we have sitting here in reserve, sitting here in our pile, is of no consequence. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to add up my victory points in here. Sorry if I've been calling them experience. We're going to add up my victory points in my discard pile in my final deck, and we're going to subtract the number of wounds, and we're going to see to what degree we have had victory. And so in the end, we had 47 victory points in our hand, and once we counted up all the wounds that were in our village, we had 43 wounds. So that means 47 minus 43 is a victory of 4 points, which is extremely slim. So I do win, but I win only by a small margin. Typically, I shouldn't say typically, but let me say that my victories are usually pretty small. They fall in the range anywhere between about 15 and about 35 usually. Sometimes you can get overwhelming victories and sometimes you can get huge defeats, but you know, so it goes with Thunderstone. And what you do is if you feel your defeat was too easy, you simply reshuffle everything you've just picked out randomly from the first game and you make it that much harder. And there's a variety of ways to do that, and we all know that. So that's the variant from Huggin. That's the variant from Sheldon. The link's been up here. You can go to it. You can unpack everything yourself. You can see a lot of comments that I've left as well. And yeah, I really encourage you to learn this variant and pick it up and enjoy it. Since I learned it several months ago, I haven't played Thunderstone any other way.